guys, it's Ollie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So as you guys probably know, we've been having a super hot summer so far this year. Heat like this can be fatal for our snails, so I just thought I would tell you guys some ways to combat the heat. I actually lost a large amount of my snails last summer because I did not know about the issues of heat with snail keeping. Most of the information I find online is for gals, and a lot of it does work with garden snails as well, but I figured I would add up my own list here and just give you guys a garden snail oriented video. So obviously disclaimers, because it's a snail video, we always have disclaimers in snail videos. Number one, this is for garden snails, this is not for aquatic or gals, even though it may work. Do your own research on that. Number two is I am not an expert. That being said, always double check and do your own research, come to your own conclusions. Yada yada, rant over, disclaimers over. One more thing before we start the video is that I am really sorry if you guys can hear that cricket in the background. I cannot find it. I am so sorry. I can't fix it. Alright, so we're going to be going over 3 things for this topic. The first topic is going to be how they survive summers and hot environments in the wild. Number 2 is why they can't do those things here in captivity on their own. And number 3, how we can help them not die from heat in captivity. I will have a table of contents down in the description below if you just want to skip to how to help and you don't want any of the other information or you already know it. So in the wild, to combat the heat, snails will usually just dig and find really cool shady spots underground or under houses or wherever they can find. So another way that they help themselves survive the heat is that they do have that thin layer of mucus on their bodies that prevents them from drying out as easily. Obviously, that's not a 100% method. It's not going to save them all the time, and they still do need some cooler environments. And snails will even go into a period of estivation in extreme cases to prevent themselves from drying out. Estivation is kind of like hibernation, but reversed. It's for heat instead of the cold. So it's like a dormancy. So why do they die more easily from heat in captivity than in the wild? Well, first things first, even if they could do this in an enclosure, it is still kind of on us to give them easier lives and not risk it, because none of the methods they use in the wild to protect themselves from the heat is going to 100% work. For one, our substrate is limited. They can't always dig far enough down to escape the heat. Number 2, they have less space to get away from the heat. Not just down, but horizontal, vertical. They have not enough space to get away from the heat. We also obviously have limited hides and limited cool areas in their enclosures. It's hard to regulate temps like that in such a small environment. And lastly, snails in captivity largely rely on you to keep them out of direct sunlight and to keep them in a cool environment. So they can't just leave the sun if you have them in front of a window. In fact, that is one of the worst things you can do. I highly don't recommend putting any enclosures in front of windows. You can cook your animal very easily that way. It does not give them sun or UV. The UV will get too broken up by the time it reaches the animal through like 2 layers of glass or whatever you're using for your enclosure. It's not worth it. It can cook your animal. So the important part of this video, and the one you're all waiting for, how can you help as a snail keeper to keep your snails nice and cool during this heat wave and during any heat wave? During any summer, any hot weather, really. One super easy way is to avoid dehydration. And one way to do this is you might be able to mist a little bit more and make sure there's nice fresh water kind of in the enclosure. But giving them a nice refreshing mist, maybe midday, would do wonders for them. The other way that you can keep them hydrated and to stay cool is to give them some nice high hydrating foods. So things like carrots, things like lettuce even. Don't give it to them as their main dish, just kind of offer it on the side. Get foods that are more water-based. So along with misting is that you can even provide a very shallow dish of water. Giant land snails, it is a lot easier to do this with than garden snails because they are so tiny. So my recommendation is take the tiniest snail you have and make sure the water is shallow enough to where it's not going to cover their breathing hole at all. You don't want that to happen. Here's like a picture of where their breathing hole is on their anatomy because it's kind of weird. The third thing you can do is just move your enclosure to a cooler part of the house if at all possible. And if it's not too heavy and it's not going to hurt you to move it or anything, it's not too much of a hassle, it might be worth moving enclosures to a different room. I know that my snails were in this room and are currently in the living room where it is nice and cool because it's a lot hotter in this room because of all the heat lamps. Other thing I mentioned earlier is that you want to keep your snails out of sunlight. You don't want them to be in direct light, especially in heat like this, because that is just going to ramp up the temps in that enclosure. The last thing you can really do is just try to keep the room they're in cool. Just try your best to just cool down the environment altogether, not just the enclosure, but the room. Alright guys, well that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, give this video a like for the algorithm, comment down below if this helped at all, anything different that you could do to help like cool down your snail enclosure that might help other keepers or me. Follow me over on Instagram, the link will be down in the description below. Also follow my art account, commissions are open, links description as below, link is in the description below as well. And also, maybe join my Facebook group if you'd like. It's just a place for us to ask questions, give advice, share pictures of our pets, all of that good stuff. Even if you just like looking at people's pets, feel free to join. It is Ollie Exotics, Thriving Over Surviving, but the link is down in the description below as well. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're into this kind of content, or really any animal kind of content. I upload every single Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you can hit the bell if you don't remember that. And as always, I will see you guys next week. Stay cool. Bye.